everyone, and welcome into First and North. I'm Cassie Carlson, and joining me this week on First and North, we have Jennifer Hammond from Fox Detroit, Lily Zhao from Fox Milwaukee, and Ahmad Hicks in Minneapolis. And we are here to get you all caught up on the news across the division. Lily, let's start with you. The Packers held rookie minicamp last weekend. What were your takeaways?
Well, Cassie, this is a fun group for the Packers. They have a lot of young guys who are excited to be in Titletown and hoping to bring another Lombardi trophy to Green Bay. But that being said, you look at what the Packers did with the positions that they chose. 2 wide receivers, a couple offensive linemen. They addressed the defense and the secondary as well. So it's a group that looks to contribute right away, at least a few of those players right away for the Packers in their rookie seasons. But I will say this, it's a really fun group, and curious to see what everybody else has to say about their rookie class. But it's really fun. There are a lot of personalities on there. Warren Brinson is a guy that the Packers drafted, a defensive player who wants to be on ESPN, so he's got that fun personality. Matthew Golden, Barron Sorrell, the guys from Texas know each other really well. So it's a really fun dynamic in terms of what this group can bring to the Packers next season. Again, it's a team that wants to compete for a division crown and much more, and you have to believe that guys like Matthew Golden and Anthony Belton, an offensive tackle, and beyond can contribute to this Packers group this year. But so far, so good. I really like this group. A lot of high character guys for the locker room. A lot of talent they brought in. So everyone in high spirits, guys, after rookie minicamp for the Packers.
Yeah, it's really always fun to hear those rookies that come in and they're like, oh, I already have a podcast. We love talking to the media. You're like, all right, we're in for a treat this year. The rest of the NFC North will have minicamp this week. Jennifer, they bolster the trenches yet again. So what will you be looking out for in Detroit?
Yeah, it's no surprise that they did bolster the trenches. That seems to be the way that Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes always want to build their teams. A lot of high character and also talented guys in this draft class. But it's going to be interesting to see. I mean, there's still, if you can believe it, so many people complaining about the fact that Brad Holmes perhaps didn't adequately address the needs at edge for this team, and yet they've still got so much depth at defensive tackle, and that will be one of the fun spots to watch as rookie training camp gets underway this weekend. Of course, their first-round pick is going to be incredible to watch. Talik Williams is a big guy out of Ohio State. I mean, he's got that winning culture. He also knows how to play football against some of the best teams in the country and probably has a lot to show. He could be a guy that feasibly could start this season, one of the few that they could lock in there, because the Lions roster is pretty well set as it goes. They're returning 11 starters on defense, so there's not going to be a lot of room for guys to make way between the guys coming off of injured reserve and coming back. It's going to be a pretty veteran group this year for the Lions. Still some spots, though, to work on. Also, for Ratledge, he's going to be a guy, Tate Ratledge, taken in the second round out of Georgia. He's going to be a guy who potentially could slot in as a starter this year for the Lions. And that's also something that we'll watch during rookie minicamp, just to kind of see how he ingratiates himself with the coaching staff. And it's fun, too. I mean, there's new coordinators here in Detroit. So as much as maybe the team isn't a whole lot different, there certainly are some different faces making the calls for the Lions coming up in 2025.
Yeah, and they'll start building that depth on both sides of the ball as well, which can be so crucial throughout a long season. Ahmad, the Vikings held an OTA last week where J.J. McCarthy threw for the first time publicly, and he made it pretty clear that he's ready to be the starting quarterback. Take a listen.
I know I'm ready to start. I appreciate that question, Kevin, because all the work I put in and just the confidence in my skills and abilities and just being able to do my job and simplify things to, the best of my ability every single day and, just take it one day at a time, one play at a time. And, I have a tremendous coaching staff, a tremendous group of guys around me that I can lean on, and they can lean on me.
All right, so Ahmad, what are you going to be looking for from J.J. McCarthy throughout this offseason workout program?
I think just confidence. That's one thing that he never lacks. That's one thing that he's always feeling good about. And I think if he just goes out there and just continues to lead like he has, even when he was a rookie and didn't play last season, I think this team will be successful. So confidence is key. We already know he can spin the football. He has a ton of weapons. They won't be out there on the field this week with him. But, it's just a fun time to be around for the Vikings and J.J. McCarthy in his future as this team kind of gears up and sets up all the pieces surrounding him to make sure that he is somewhat successful. But all eyes will be on Donovan Jackson, the the guy up front that they drafted in the first round to see if he can protect J.J. McCarthy this season, because we all know that interior offensive line struggled mightily when they needed him most last year.
Yeah, I want to stay on the McCarthy topic really quick, because he made waves this offseason when he was on another show and he said that the Vikings hadn't told him that he was the starting quarterback yet, and that was all going on while the Aaron Rodgers smoke was still surrounding the Vikings. Did he talk at all about how that impacted him this offseason?
No, and he kind of went on in that interview with Kay Adams to just kind of say, I don't want to be handed anything. He's like, I've always had to work for my starting job, whether that goes back to before he got to IMG or had his school in Nazareth in Illinois, or just coming up, with Michigan. He's always had to earn every single thing that he's had. And I think that's no different here in the National Football League. He wants to earn the trust of his teammates, earn the trust of his coach to say, hey, that's our guy. But they already believe he's the guy in the locker room. He just has to go out there and prove it to all those NFL analysts who are questioning him and to all those fans who really don't know what he's capable of. But I think everyone's sold on him right now.
All right, they do extend outside linebacker Andrew Van Ginkel 1 year, $23 million. He started every game for the first time in his career, a Pro Bowler for the first time in his career under Brian Flores. What does he mean to this defense?
It means everything. That's why they extended him. That's why they gave him that money, because you saw what Jonathan Grenard did on the opposite side of him, and they paid him a ton of money. Dallas Turner is another guy who's going to get in the mix this season with Andrew Van Ginkel and JG. So I just think you talk about elite pass rushers. That's something that Detroit had. That's something that they're trying to improve on, and I think that's something Minnesota learned, that, hey, if we can get after the quarterback, or we can get an outside linebacker who can step in front of a bubble screen and take it back for a pick six, we got to keep this guy around, and we got to pay him what he's worth. So I think they did a phenomenal job just shoring up that defensive front, because what he did last season, he overproduced. No one expected him to come in and do what he did and get those 2 interceptions returned for a touchdown, 79 tackles, 11 and a half sacks. I mean, he was a top 10 defensive player in most people's eyes on the other side of Jonathan Grenard. So you had to bring him back. You had to make sure that he got paid. Now the rich just get richer on that defense of Brian Flores, and I know he's licking his chops ready to get back on the football field with AG.
Yeah, and another year with Brian Flores, just what everyone in the division wants to see. Bears rookie minicamp, it's not going to be as exciting as it was last year when you were welcoming Caleb Williams as the franchise quarterback. So this year, I'm looking to see what tight end Colston Loveland's involvement is going to be. He's the 10th overall pick, but he's still rehabbing back from shoulder surgery that he had in January. So he's not going to be on the field in contact mode or in pads likely. But Ben Johnson said that he believes the tight end position is the second hardest position to learn on offense, second to the quarterback. So as much as we want to see what Colston Loveland can do on the field and being a weapon for Caleb Williams over that period of time, Ben Johnson said this period of time is going to be so much more focused on the mental aspect for this rookie, making the jump from going to Michigan to now playing in the NFL and a charter franchise, and how much he can learn the playbook in this period of time. And then I think another really interesting storyline is going to be the offensive line. We saw the Bears overhaul the interior this offseason. They go get Jonah Jackson, they bring in Joe Thuney, they sign Drew Dahlman, but now there's still some question marks of who is going to be starting at the tackle positions, because you have Braxton Jones, the starting left tackle the past few seasons. He's coming back from ankle surgery. We don't know if he's going to be healthy in time for training camp. Then you have Karan Amagaji. He's a 3rd-round pick last year. Is he going to be ready for the NFL? He was thrown into the fire against that Brian Flores defense on Monday Night Football last year in Minneapolis, and he got torn apart. And then you have what Ryan Poles brought up as an interesting scenario at right tackle. They have Darnell Wright. He was a top 10 pick a few years ago. And even Ben Johnson compared him to seeing likeliness of Penei Sewell in his game. But Ryan Poles opened the door right before the draft when he said Darnell Wright can also play left tackle. And then the Bears go out in the 2nd round and draft an offensive tackle in Ozzie Trapillo out of Boston College, who primarily played right tackle. Now this week he said that he's likely going to see Trapillo get some reps on the left tackle side because of those other guys going through injury. So I think it still begs the question of, could potentially Darnell Wright move to left tackle this season if Braxton Jones isn't ready? Or are we going to see Ozzie Trapillo play left tackle potentially, or could he be the starting right tackle? So still a lot of question marks on the offensive line with the Bears, which we see every single year, so really comes as no surprise. All right. ESPN released their post-draft NFL power rankings. Chiefs, Eagles, and Bills are top 3 in the league. The Lions coming in at 4. So Jennifer, do you believe the Lions are the 4th best team after the draft?
Well, until they play a game that says otherwise, you've got to believe in what they've done most recently, right? They've won back-to-back NFC North titles. And really, this is a team that is strong and is deep, and it is one that as well returns a lot of starters on offense, particularly when you've got guys like Jared Goff and David Montgomery and Amon-Ra St. Brown, and that offensive line coming back for the most part. The offensive line still in check, save for one guard position. I think that you've got to like their chances. Does the schedule get harder? Absolutely. Will it be a tougher road with two new coordinators? For sure. But that doesn't change the fact that they've got Dan Campbell running this show, and so many of the guys believe in him. And as I mentioned, the depth on this team and the direction that they've been heading over the last 4 or 5 years with Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell in tow, it's been absolutely impressive. And I think that the division may be getting a little bit tougher, but I do think the Lions are up to the task. And in fact, even losing in the first round last year to Washington, I think was something that really woke this team up. Certainly they want to play for the best record. They would love to have a first round bye, but the schedule is going to be harder, and they're going to have a lot more battles and be tested outdoors, which is going to make them a little bit stronger. And I think that will only serve them well in the postseason. It might have been a little too easy, dare I say, for the Lions last season, rolling to that number one seed in the NFC. You know, I do think there is a chance that maybe they overlooked Washington just a little bit. And a lot of people still like to look back and pin it on the injuries because they were decimated. As we know, throughout the season, up to 22 guys on IR, the most in NFL history. But at the same time, I feel like their offense is what really let them down in that game against Washington. It had nothing to do with the injury situation on defense. So I think this Lions team is going to be battle tested, and they're going to come back with a chip on their shoulder, even more so than the previous 2 seasons.
All right, Lily, the Packers are up 1 spot. They're coming in at 8. Are the rookie wide receivers that they just drafted the missing piece for the Packers?
You have to hope so, at least offensively, right? This is a really talented offense. They have a good tight end group. The guys up front are playing very well for Jordan Love, but the question will be wide receiver. And again, until they play some games, we will see if we were proven right or proven wrong. But all offseason, the chatter was the Packers don't need a traditional number 1 receiver. They have a good stable of guys. But the draft kind of proved otherwise. They drafted a first-round receiver for the first time in 22 years, and that was Matthew Golden out of Texas, a guy who's known for his speed, some good hands, good route running. He's a really good receiver. That's why they picked him in the first round. The Packers don't do that traditionally, so they broke the mold and got their guy. So you have to believe that with Christian Watson, their presumed number 1, out a majority of the season with that ACL tear, that Matthew Golden will be, used pretty heavily in their offense. Yes, he is a rookie. Yes, he has to learn the playbook. Yes, he has to get some chemistry with Jordan Love. But I think once it all kind of comes together, he could be that prototypical number 1 guy for the Packers if nobody else in that group does step up. You have Savion Williams, a 3rd-round pick out of TCU. He's a gadget guy the Packers can use, and I'm sure Matt LaFleur really excited to plug him into their offense. Again, the player comp is Cordero Patterson. We knew what he could do. So if Savion Williams can get a taste of what Cordero Patterson can do for the Packers, it really bodes well for this offense, because at the end of the day, I do think that they do need a traditional number 1 guy. Everybody else raises their level as well. This could be a very lethal group. Packers all-time great in the receiver group, Jordy Nelson, also said that, listen, he also believes they need a number 1 receiver. So you're kind of hoping that one of those guys will be the answer for that until they can get Christian Watson back and until the rest of those guys can really elevate their level. I think a lot of people were expecting a sophomore jump from the entire wide receiver group. Didn't really get it last season, so you have to believe that with some younger guys in that group, the competition will be elevated. It's going to be a really fun group this year.
Ahmad, really quick, you mentioned Donovan Jackson earlier. How much do you think that addition as a rookie is going to mean for the Vikings this season?
Well, if he plays up to his potential, I think it'll be exponential, but that we just won't know until the pads get on and we see him lined up against everybody else. But the Vikings made it a priority to fix this offensive line. They did that. They had 2 premier tackles already, and Brian O'Neill and Christian Darrisaw. Then you go out and add Will Fries and Ryan Kelly. Both are coming off a little bit of injury history, but it's okay. If they just play up to their potential and bring along Donovan Jackson, I think that'll help out tremendously with J.J. McCarthy, Aaron Jones, Jordan Mason, and all the other skilled players the Vikings have.
All right, the Bears are up 1 spot to 21st. Nothing too exciting, but I do think it's fair. We've seen all the additions they've made on the offensive line. They add another weapon to the wide receiver room for Caleb Williams. Now they just got to prove that they can put all the pieces together. We got to take a break from First and North. When we come back, we're going to go through the renderings for the 2027 NFL Draft, and the NFL schedule release is next Wednesday. We're going to look at each team's notable matchups when we come back.
Major League Baseball on Fox. what I'm doing. Hey, getting right to it. The money is talking, I'm flowing, it's coming in just how I do it.
Oh my goodness! Major League Baseball all season long on Fox.
Welcome back to First and North. I'm Cassie Carlson at our Fox 32 studios in Chicago. Joined this week by Jennifer Hammond in Detroit, Lily Zhao in Milwaukee, and Ahmad Hicks in Minneapolis. The NFL announces the 2027 NFL Draft is headed to Washington, D.C. and will take place across the National Mall and Pennsylvania Avenue. The renderings have the Capitol and the Washington Monument in the backdrop of the draft stage. Jennifer, I want to go to you because Detroit showed out with the largest attendance in NFL draft history last year. NFL Commissioner, though, Roger Goodell expecting over 1 million people to attend. What do you think of the location and these renderings, which I got to admit, they're pretty impressive?
You know what? It is a gorgeous backdrop for anything in Washington, D.C. there on the National Mall. And I wouldn't be surprised if Detroit's attendance record is shattered because D.C. in and of itself is such a great tourist destination, particularly in the spring. And so the weather there will be pristine. There's going to be a lot of people there who are just in the city for business, pleasure, trips, whatever, and a lot of students perhaps as well. So I think it's really going to be a cool place and especially a great way to showcase the United States and just what beautiful monuments we have in our nation's capital. So I think it's really cool. I would love to absolutely be there.
All right, Bears fans just hoping they're not picking in the top 10 2 years from now. And part of that will have to do with how they look next year. Who's laughing? Is that Ahmad? I mean, it's the reality. We say it every year, yeah. Well, schedule release is coming up next Wednesday. The entire NFC North will be going through a gauntlet of a schedule. Packers actually have the easiest schedule in the division, but ranked 23rd in the NFL. The Bears 26th, Vikings 28th, Lions 30th. I'll start with the Bears. It's the away schedule that is just absolutely brutal for this team. Outside of the division, you're looking at the Ravens, Bengals, Eagles, Commanders, and 49ers. Playoff teams in 4 of those matchups. And I think everyone has that Commanders game circled right now, given the fact that we all know what happened with the Fail Mary last year. That was the catalyst to starting that 10-game losing streak. How is Caleb Williams going to stack up against Jaden Daniels in year 2 of their what should be a long tenured career? Because Caleb Williams is expected to make this huge jump. He is the #1 overall pick, and because Jaden Daniels had that Rookie of the Year season, they're always going to be compared to one another. The Bears win total set at 8.5. They have not reached their over win total since 2018. I buy into this offseason hype every single year. I'm going to give it the Ben Johnson effect and say that I'm going to take the over on this one, but I'm not going like double-digit wins. I'm thinking it's going to be about 9 because 11 of their 17 games are against playoff teams last year. They prioritize the positions that are important for the offensive line to protect Caleb Williams. They add more weapons to the wide receiver room. They add another tight end with the top 10 pick. So, yeah, I'm going to go with like 9 wins and take the over on the win total. Ahmad, what do you think of the Vikings? They have the same win total as the Bears at 8.5. New quarterback.
Yeah.
Do you like over or under?
I'm hammering the over right now. Anything less than 10 or 11 wins this season will be a disappointment. I mean, come on now. You got Justin Jefferson, you got TJ Hockenson, you got Aaron Jones, like the weapons galore offensively. And then you talk about a top defensive unit last year, and then they just added to that. Am I confident in their cornerbacks right now? No. I think they will get better, though, by having Byron Murphy Jr. there, Jeff Okudah, still some things to be answered about him. But I certainly think the Vikings can win 11 to 12 games this year. It's going to be certainly competitive in the NFC North. I love the fact that they play like the Baltimore Ravens at home. When you look at some of their notable teams that they go travel to on the road, not necessarily many of them with winning records. You're talking about the New York Giants, the Cleveland Browns, the Seattle Seahawks, like teams like that. They're certainly winnable. So I love what I see from the schedule and the opponents that are out there already. Can't wait to see the dates and things like that. But I think it lines up in the Vikings' favor to have at least 12 wins next year. They built this team around J.J. McCarthy really well. So if he just comes out there and just plays at least above average football, they're going to win double-digit games, I believe.
And they do get to see Sam Darnold against Seattle next year. Jennifer, I know we both have Bears-Lions circle. That's going to be a fun one given the fact that Chicago stole Ben Johnson away. Lions have Commanders, Eagles, Ravens, and Chiefs. I don't know that you want to see that schedule. The win total, though, set at 10.5 for the second straight season. It's going to be hard to repeat another 15-win season, though. What do you think?
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you on that one, Cassie. I don't think the Lions will be able to get to 15 wins this season, but I do see them going over 10.5 pretty well. Like the Bears, 11 of the games they play are against playoff teams, so it's going to be a much harder road. That one in Philadelphia is kind of interesting because I think a lot of people are circling that. Pro Football Focus came out with a list of the 4 or 5 top games that fans are interested in seeing this year, the matchups, and Detroit-Philadelphia was number 2 on that list, if you can believe it. So a lot of people are wondering if that may be the Thursday night opener for the NFL season before Labor Day weekend. Very well could be. That would be a huge competition because I think that's the game many expected to see last year in the NFC Championship before the Washington Commanders ruined the Lions' postseason dreams. So it'll be fun to see. I mean, like I mentioned, a lot of these games are outdoors. It's going to really test the moxie and the mettle of Dan Campbell's team. But I think he's the kind of coach that loves it the way that, or, you know, if it ain't rough, it ain't right. It's kind of like the Rasheed Wallace in the Pistons, back in the Pistons days. That's the way they like it. And they want to be able to go on the road and earn all the respect and earn all of those victories. And this is a really battle-tested team. And I think that they're going to do pretty well. I put them at about 12 or 13 wins this season.
Wow, that'd be really impressive. Lily, Packers with home games against the Eagles, Commanders, and Ravens. Gotta love that. And if Aaron Rodgers joins the Steelers, that one's gonna be must watch. Packers win total sits at 9.5. Can they make it 7 straight winning seasons?
Oh, absolutely, guys. I'm always optimistic in the offseason. I think the Packers get 10, 11, maybe 12 wins this year. We'll see. But, yeah, you talk about the home gauntlet, though. It is tough playing at Lambeau Field this season for the Packers. It's every NFC North opponent, the Eagles, the Commanders, the Ravens, the Bengals, and the Panthers are in there. But it's a really tough home slate. Fortunately, it is in Green Bay. But outside of the typical opponents outside of the division, the Packers kind of have to focus on in the division. They were almost 0-6 against all of your teams last season. So the Packers really have to improve with their wins in the division. They're hoping they can do that. So a very tough home slate for the Green Bay Packers. And you mentioned it, Cassie, the Steelers. If Aaron Rodgers decides to go to Pittsburgh, that will be a must-watch game. It will be in Pittsburgh. So it will be one of those games that we're going to have to circle on our calendar whenever Aaron Rodgers does make his decision. But it's going to be a tough slate of games this year for the Packers. So, you know, despite all that, I'm still remaining optimistic until those games are played.
Jennifer, I keep laughing because you keep making the comment that, you know, the Lions have to prove that they can play outdoors. But I remember this being such a talking point before they went to Green Bay last year. Like, Jared Goff can't play in the cold. And then they went into Green Bay and they beat them. So I'm surprised that you still think that that's going to be a huge storyline.
Well, I think that it's a huge storyline for everyone on the periphery. I mean, we've certainly seen it, but there are still some teams that they've been unable to beat on the road in many years, one being in Philadelphia and also the Ravens on the road. Fortunately, they have the Ravens here this year. I do believe that's a home game for the Lions. Correct me if I'm wrong. But it's really interesting because there's just some teams that have been bugaboos for the Lions on the road. They got over that Green Bay hurdle several years ago, so that is kind of water under the bridge. But at San Francisco is another one of them. I mean, there's just some spots where this team has not performed well in the past. And so it's always up for the challenge and debate to see if they can kind of get over that hump and check another one off the box.
I'm hoping the Bears open the season in Philly for Thursday Night Football. All right, we need to take a break. How hard is it to fit a huge beanbag in a truck? Well, Dan Campbell has the answer when we return on First and North.
The UFL is history in motion, built one story at a time. It's the gunslingers, the burners, and the cold-blooded. It's a dynasty that went back to back to back. This is the UFL. The stories continue.
All right, welcome back. Remember growing up and flipping through magazines and seeing the section like celebrities, they're just like us. Well, Dan Campbell has a very relatable, he's just like us moment, moving his son out of his dorm in college and trying to fit this massive beanbag in the back of the truck. Jennifer, I'm guessing you guys ran this all week. Hilarious.
Yeah, that got a little bit of airtime in Detroit, needless to say. It was actually his daughter, Piper, who's a rising sophomore at Michigan State University. And I think that's called like a love bag or something like that. Maybe one of you can correct me on the the actual definition of that. But yeah, his wife Holly is the one who has the sense of humor that had the camera rolling while the head coach was trying to get that thing in the back of his truck. And people just absolutely ate it up on social media. And Campbell's a hilarious dude anyway. He doesn't care.
I love it. His wife is a great follow on Instagram as well. All right,
Yeah,
everyone, we
she's
got to
fun.
go. Great show. We'll be back next week for more First and North.